So our next topic is going to be topic 3.6. I'm actually skipping a topic 3.5, but I'll make that in a later video. Reason being, I just like to do cellular respiration before I like to do photosynthesis. So let's go ahead and start talking about cellular respiration a little bit. We started in class a little bit with this stuff, but I'm going to go maybe a little bit more in detail. But cellular respiration, the overall process is what you eat, what's eaten, plus what we breathe and what animals take in, which is oxygen. Glucose, oxygen, this is food and air, right? And energy is released in this process, and carbon dioxide and water are the kind of products of this whole reaction. So this is kind of the reaction as it's written down. Very important formula to know. I mean, not for memorization purposes, but to understand rather. C6H12O6, you know that better as glucose, plus 6O2 is going to yield 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O. Of course, what it doesn't show you in here is you have another reaction taking place. You have ADP plus inorganic phosphate being slapped together into an ATP molecule around 36 times total, and aerobic respiration. So I want to talk a little bit about these steps, in detail. We have our glucose molecule. This is our cell membrane, this edge right here. Glucose is going to enter a cell, and then it's going to go through this process called glycolysis, which we're going to talk about in depth in this video. So this is kind of our starting point. Glycolysis occurs in the cytosol of the cell, in the cytoplasm here. It generates total 2 ATP and 2 NADH. It also requires an initial investment of 2 ATP. The purpose of glycolysis is to split glucose into 2 pyruvate molecules, 2 3-carbon molecules. So we're going from 6 carbons to 2 3-carbon molecules. These are your pyruvates. Pyruvate molecules, of course, this is glucose. Again, these pyruvate molecules are kind of the first step. At this point here, you either have oxygen, so you're going to follow this pathway over here, or you do not have oxygen. If you do not have oxygen, you're going to follow this pathway down here, which leads to fermentation, lactic acid fermentation in those animals. So pyruvate is either going to go into the mitochondria or never enter the mitochondria. You can see how this is an evolutionary process that probably existed before mitochondria had been engulfed by the cell, because it occurs outside, it can occur outside of the mitochondria only, right? Glycolysis occurs outside here. Now, pyruvate can enter the mitochondria in our next process that we're going to talk about. But first, it's got to make that decision. So this is kind of more detailed pathway here. Pyruvate, of course, we have this NADH molecule we've made, which we'll talk about more in depth later on. But in essence, this is going to be an energy molecule, an electron carrier that also carries H plus ions to the final step. But again, we'll talk about that later. Just know for now that we have some NADH being formed. Pyruvate, as it enters, is going to bind with a coenzyme A to form an acetyl-CoA complex, which is going to take it into the Krebs cycle. Now, if you do not have oxygen, or you are in anaerobic conditions, remember AN kind of signifies not aerobic or not with oxygen, anaerobic respiration occurs down this other pathway, right? So just something to keep in mind. We, of course, undergo something called lactic acid fermentation. If your muscles have ever gotten sore, that's a buildup of lactic acid, meaning you've been working out so hard that your muscles don't have the required oxygen to go down this normal aerobic pathway where you can generate lots of ATP. Right? And then, of course, alcohols also form in a similar way, right, through alcohol fermentation. This is both processes that occur without alcohol, or without oxygen, sorry. Okay. The link reaction. This is the second reaction that kind of takes place. This is the binding of that coenzyme A to this acetic acid here that's going to give us our acetyl coenzyme A. Generates 2 NADH, releases 2 CO2 molecules, and this prepares the molecule for entry into the mitochondria. I'm showing you down here what the coenzyme A looks like. If you look at this molecule, it should look somewhat similar. This entire portion here is the coenzyme A portion, of course, you can see the precursor molecule for this because you see a nitrogenous base, you see a sugar over here, kind of this wonky phosphate coming off, and you see a couple of phosphates here as well. So why don't you guys pause and tell me what biomolecule you think is a precursor for this coenzyme A. I'll write that out for you. Coenzyme A. Okay, if you said nucleic acid, you would be right. You would be right. Nucleic acids have all of these features. Of course, you've also got this strange piece coming off here, this A vitamin. And this part over here is that pyruvate molecule, which has been stripped of 1 carbon. So, started with pyruvate, 2 3-carbon molecules. Again, this happens twice. That's why you have this 2x out here. You have some NADH stored, 2 total NADH here. We're banking those electrons for use later on in this process. And you end up with 2 acetyl-CoA molecules, and you've lost 2 CO2 molecules. 2 carbons gone. 2 carbons gone at this point. Now, of course, this 2-carbon acetyl group here is going to enter the next step in our process. But let's go ahead and count what we have so far. Glycolysis, we have 1 6-carbon glucose molecule. It has given us 2 3-carbon pyruvate molecules, and we end up with 2 net ATP and 2 NADH. So I'm not sure if let's see. For the link reaction, we end up with 2 pyruvate molecules are oxidized, and these are added to the coenzyme A to form acetyl-CoA. 2 carbons are lost and as CO2, and 2 NADH are formed. So total, right, so far, what we have here is 2 ATP have been formed and 4 NADH, which are our electron carriers. Electron carriers. We'll see them later. They're extremely important, but right now we're generating them, not using them yet. But they'll be very important for later steps. And we have 2 carbons lost as CO2. 2 carbons lost as CO2. We're going to see this again. Of course, what happens to that CO2 ultimately? You might guess you breathe it out. That is kind of a waste product of these 2 cycles. We will talk in the next video about the next step of this process, which is the Krebs cycle. So thank you for listening.